everybody, Al Noriker here with KastKing Fishing. You know, we've learned a lot about fly fishing so far. We've learned about the rods, the reels, the line, maybe even some of the flies, and how to tie knots even. But now it's time to learn how to actually cast a fly rod. And to do that, I brought along a couple of really good friends. Now this is Clay and Sandy Roberts. Clay and Sandy, these guys, they are exceptional. First of all, it's a husband and wife team. They're professional fishermen, professional guides, but they're also master fly casters. And if anybody can teach you the basics of casting a fly rod, it's Clay and Sandy. So let's give them a few minutes, walk you through the basics, and I think you are going to be an expert fly caster before you know it. Here's Clay and Sandy.
Hi, I'm Clay Roberts, KastKing Pro staff.
I'm Sandy Roberts, and I'm also with the KastKing Pro team. Today, we are going to talk about fly casting, and we're going to talk about the basics. We're going to start with the most basic thing that you can think of at all, and that would be the grip. When you're golfing, you need a good grip. When you're fly fishing, you need a good grip. To make an accurate cast, you need a good grip, and what I'm talking about on the grip is how we hold the fly rod. So we're going to start with the first thing we're going to do, basic grips. First thing, thumb on top. That's one choice that we could have. Next choice we could have finger on top, or we could have what's called a V grip. Now, when I'm first teaching fly casting, I like to tell people to use a thumb on top grip because your thumb is your strongest finger in your hand, and you're going to have a lot of strength using that finger. Finger on top, it's a very accurate grip. I can virtually point to something and I can cast right to it. However, your finger is usually not as strong as your thumb, but it is also a good grip. Another one would be V grip. The fly rod handle is in the V of my thumb and this finger here, and it would be a V grip. What we don't want to see when you're casting is if I hand you the rod and you do this and you do a no grip, because what happens is you'll make a big, huge, wide loop. Fly casting is very aerodynamic. If you can think of an airplane, the nose of an airplane and how it goes through the air, it's the same thing with the loop in your fly line. It makes a nice tight loop to go forward, a nice tight loop on your back cast. We'll be going over that too. But we don't want to have a grip that causes you to make this big, huge, rounded loop. So when you're first starting to cast, my recommendation would be thumb on top grip.
I want to talk a little bit here about something that's very related to your grip, and that's going to be line control. As I'm teaching students, I see a lot of times that this subject is just kind of glossed over and it's not talked about, and it ends up getting folks in trouble. So what I want to talk about is the line finger, how we control the line and how we strip in line and let out line. You could use your index finger, or you could use your middle finger to trap the line between your finger and the handle. And then we strip. We don't ever really reach in front of our hand that's on the handle. We work the fly line from behind. We strip in the line. We can control our slack, and for a hook set for a fish, when a fish takes your fly, it's just bing right here. You trap the line right there. You're onto the fish, and basically we just strip the fish in. If it's a small, you got to kind of judge that. If it's a big fish, you may want to let him get to the reel, but we just strip from behind the hand and bring the fish to hand, to your net. Okay, we're ready to get started on actual casting. We've talked about line control and grip. We got that all nailed down, and so we're going to look at our first cast, and that is going to be, for this particular situation, it's going to be a roll cast. And one of the questions I sometimes get ahead of myself at shows and different things, teaching people, and I go, how do I get my line out the first time in order to be able to initiate a cast? So we'll go over a couple of those little quick techniques, and they're kind of fun. So first thing we have to do is strip some line off of our reel. 20-25 foot is probably going to be enough. We're just pulling it right off the reel, putting it at our feet. I'm just guessing that's enough. We're just going to whack it out there. And so what we're going to do now is we have water. The water's going to grab the line, water tension. We may have a pond, or it even works on grass. We're just going to stroke the rod, no tension on this line. You're just kind of guiding it through the rod tip, and the line just goes right out on the water. And we're ready to make our first roll cast. Okay, we've got our line placed out on the water. We've stroked it out of the rod, and we're ready to do our first roll cast. So in a roll cast, we start with our rod tip close to the water. In almost all casts, if we have the option, we start with our tip of the rod close to the water, or grass, depends on what you're doing. Roll cast, we're going to bring the rod back. We call this the key position, just between your good angle here. We call this the wedge. Hand between your ear and your shoulder, and we formed what we call a D loop. Maybe you can see that behind me. The line is draped behind my shoulder. That's where it needs to be, and the rod forms the face of the D, hence the D loop. And we're going to come forward. This is a waterborne cast, so it works off of water tension. The line is being grabbed by the water, and so it takes just a little bit more force to make this cast. And it's not really a hard cast. We just come forward as if maybe we had a hammer in our hand, and we're going to come forward and we're going to stop as if we're hitting a nail here. That's going to load the rod, and as we stop, we come forward, it's going to load the rod, and as we stop, the rod's going to unload, and the line is going to propel forward in a loop, so to speak, out over the water. Let's see what it looks like. Roll cast. We stop, form our D, water is grabbing the line, and we come forward. The line just rolls out nicely above the water. Great cast if you have an obstacle behind you.
So you see Clay is doing a very nice roll cast here, and you're saying, well, why are we doing a roll cast? Why aren't we picking it up and doing like a river runs through it cast, right? We're doing a roll cast because, as you see, when he comes up, his fly, it's never leaving the water. It's staying in the water, and he's using the water retention, and then he's throwing it back, basically, right? It's unrolling, it's going back. The reason we want to do that, in Colorado, we have bushes and grass and rocks and all kinds of things behind you. You come up on a pickup cast and you have a fly on, there's a good possibility that that $3 fly you just bought is hooked on a tree behind you. With the roll cast, if there's any obstacles at all behind you, you can avoid all the obstacles. Now, another thing Clay can do too with the roll cast is if all of a sudden the wind is coming from his right side, when he brings that rod up, all he has to do is bring it to his left shoulder. You see how he did that? He can go to his left and go forward. So we don't have wind here right now, but if he did, he's making the same cast, but he's bringing the line up to the left now to avoid the wind that may have come from this shoulder.
Roll cast. Sandy, let's talk about the pickup and the laydown.
Yeah, so another cast that we like to do, that we like to teach people right at the beginning, would be our pickup laydown cast. And it's just a basic cast. Basically, what we're doing is we're going to strip off line. Typically, we like to strip off about 30 feet. You're saying, well, why do we like to strip off 30 feet? Well, 30 feet is about the distance. And when I'm talking line, I'm talking about the dark part. The part at the end of the line is your leader, the clearer part. But I'm talking about the actual fly line. We want to strip off about 30 feet off of our reel so that we can load our rod to make our fly propel forward, to propel backward. We're loading our rod, so most manufacturers will recommend about 30 feet out of the rod tip. So we're going to wiggle some out just a little. We're going to have our rod tip down. Now if you see, I've actually trapped my line again. We don't want to do this. We do want to trap it. We're just going to pick it up, lay it down, pick it up, lay it down, pick it up, lay it down. What you're not seeing me do is there is a pause. On a fly cast, there's a pause at the front, there's a pause at the back. But for now, we're just doing a pick it up, lay it down, pick it up, lay it down. This is going to be a basic cast that you're going to be using. If you have a lot of trees and things behind you, then you're going to want to do what Clay was showing you earlier and just go to your roll cast. And that way my fly doesn't leave the water. But a pick up, lay down. Now one thing we tell you is, pretend you have a book, your most favorite book, your most favorite cookbook, your most favorite book. Have that book right next to you. Your elbow is here. Pretend that you have a book. Just pick up, lay down. Pick up, lay down. I'm keeping my arm pretty close to my body. I'm keeping everything together. What I don't want to see you do I don't want to see this. A lot of times when we're teaching casting, people will say to me, oh, I know how to cast and they're doing this kind of thing. We do not, no, we don't want that. It's very easy. Very smooth and right down. Clay?
I agree. Just to reiterate a point, the roll cast is a great cast to start your pickup and lay down. It allows you to roll the line out and then go into your pickup and your lay down. And if you mess up your overhead cast, just roll it out, start over.
There's going to be times where we need to extend the amount of line we have out. Right now, as an example, I'm standing on a rock. So if I want to get the line out farther, I'm going to need to cast a little farther. So Clay, you're going to tell us how that's going to happen.
Yeah, let's talk about some false casting. Let's talk about some uses first, I guess, before we get started. A false cast is used to dry the fly. If you're fishing a dry fly, the fly will take up some water and it won't be floating so well, so you can make a couple of false casts. The minimum amount, it just takes one or two to snap the water out of that fly. A false cast can be used to lengthen the line, so you can reach out to that fish as he's rising and moving away from you. You can get a little further out. A false cast, a big use of a false cast is changing direction. So that's a pretty decent loop. My rod is stopping at, maybe if we have a clock, it's stopping at 1 o'clock behind us and 10 o'clock in front. Very high, getting a tight loop. That is a very efficient loop for fishing. It's narrow, the energy is focused to the front, it is very accurate, and it beats the wind well. So the opposite of that, which generally happens because of too much arm movement and too much wrist movement, is a wide open loop, and it will look something kind of like this. You can see how I'm making that. My wrist is opening up, the line is going down in the back. We're going to lose our $3 fly in the grass. Very inefficient. The energy is being projected around a wide open loop. The wind is going to have its way with it, with you. You're going to be all over the place. Your presentation is going to be full pour in the front, and your accuracy is going to suffer.
You know, that's one of the things that we see quite a bit when we're teaching fly casting. It's one of the biggest mistakes is this wrist bending too much. You know, when he made that S loop, if you looked at his wrist, it was going like this. And so we need to have our wrist more like a lever of a tractor, a little bit, you know, a little stiffer. There's a little movement in your wrist, but definitely not like that. Yep. And that's what's causing that S loop to occur, from what I can tell, is mainly the bending of your wrist.
Yep, you want to have a firm wrist, but not a stiff wrist. I see people get up and cast, and somebody's told them, well, don't bend your wrist. You need to bend your wrist a little bit to make a effective
I'll tell you,
fly
Clay,
cast.
one of the tricks that we've taught people over the years, if you just want to show it really quick, he can take the fly rod handle, and he's got long sleeves on. One of the tricks we use to get people used to holding the rod without bending so much is putting, like he did, he tucked the handle of the fly rod into the end of his shirt. Another thing you can do too, Clay, if you can't get it that way, take your other hand just like that, put your other hand, use your second hand to support it, to hold it straighter. It will feel really weird at the beginning, but once you get used to this movement, it's going to make it a lot easier.
You just go to the close.
Sandy, that pretty much kind of knocks out the basics of getting started in fly casting. Let's recap real quick and go through what we just talked about.
Yeah, Clay, we've talked about the grips. We want to make sure we have a proper grip when we're casting, when we're fly fishing. We want to make sure that we know how to get the line off of the reel and get the line into the water. We've talked about trapping the line under your finger. We've talked about doing the roll cast. We did a pickup lay down cast.
Yep. You've watched these clips, so now it's just time to get out there and practice a little bit. It just takes a little bit of practice. Front yard, field, park, or while you're out camping at a lake, just get out there and go through these things and just practice a little bit, and you'll be rewarded.
For now, we've taught you the basics. I'm Sandy Roberts. I'm on KastKing's Pro Team, and
stay tuned. I'm Clay Roberts, KastKing Pro Team.